Any predictions for 2026?
Civil war.
Really?
Yeah. An attack. The British Empire never ended. It's still there, but as a financial web. We're at war with everybody. The whole world, other than Russia and China. If you think it's just about the oil, you're now in 2015 land. This has to do with election fraud, drugs and the guns, and the breaking of the private money flows around the world, which keep the shadow empire, which never ends, flush with cash. This is a classic divide and rule play that the British do. If they were flying Venezuelan flags, this would be an act of war.
I got the most blowback I've gotten on Twitter X in years for quote tweeting one of the videos of the drug boats getting bombed and saying I voted for this. It says extrajudicial killing of fishermen off the coast of Venezuela.
Well, yeah, well, the libertarians have all lost their minds because they don't know how to read. I'm just going to make it. I'm just going to be blunt. People that are non-state actors in international waters have no rights under UNCLOS. If they're told to stop and they don't, then you can do whatever you want to them. The guy had a huge post on this the other day, and I'm like, oh, by the way, Senator Rand Paul, the operative word today is piracy. Piracy is still illegal in the open seas. And if you only want to describe weapons as, guns, that's great. But I'm sorry, but, cocaine is a weapon. Fentanyl is a weapon. We're losing more people a year to fentanyl poisonings than we lost during all of Vietnam.
Well, and that was the thing that pissed me off the most. Is like, we didn't declare war. It's like, well, obviously not explicitly.
We declare war against these people. Aren't flying. They're not flying flags. If they were flying Venezuelan flags, this would be an act of war. And then Venezuela can declare war against us. And then we can see who wins, the American Navy or the Venezuelan Navy. Of course, Rand Paul doesn't want to address that because then that would blow his whole fake moral outrage out the window. Like, all the libertarians are crashing out over everything, Marty. It's pathetic what I've been watching. And the more I watch them crash out, and I hate to say this, I'm now going to breathe fire for a couple minutes on this issue because it's really been bothering me. But the more I watch them crash out, especially over Venezuela, over the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Epstein files, all of this anti-Trump crap, every goddamn bit of it is making me believe that the whole thing was a big goddamn British psyop from the beginning in the first place. Like, I can't not see it anymore. Like, Jay Dyer's been screaming about this stuff for years, and I used to no, come on, that's crazy. The LaRouchians have been saying the same thing for years. That's crazy talk. Now I'm watching them in real time. I mean, I had to hang my head in shame today when I saw Ron Paul say the Hegseth killings need to stop. Now, do I believe that Ron Paul wrote that tweet? No, I believe that faggot Daniel McAdams wrote that tweet. But, Ron, hey man, blink twice if you can't speak freely anymore. But that's where I am. I mean, I'm over this stuff. We're at war with everybody. I don't know where you lost me in the middle of that rant.
We're at war with everybody.
We're at war with everybody. When I mean everybody, I'll define everybody as the West. So Europe, City of London, the old, Venetian, Jewish, this, whatever you want to call it, big organized crime syndicate that's existed for the last, 2,000 years. Pick your poison as to how far back you want to go. Like, we're at war with all of those people. We want our independence as a country for the first time in our 250-year history. And, as far as I'm concerned, if you just watch who's screaming, and that's who the enemy is. So as far as I'm concerned, Rand Paul is now the enemy. He's made it abundantly clear he's the enemy of civilization. Like, sorry, sometimes you're going to have to take your principles and understand how the non-aggression principle actually works, which is when people are aggressing you and they're bringing crap into your community that you do not want, that is killing your people, you have every goddamn right to blow them out of the water.
Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward to me. It's like, hey,
non-state, state, flying a flag, not flying a flag, dick up somebody's ass or whatever. I don't give a shit. Like, it's dumb. And it's so pathetic to watch this happen. So what I found really interesting, is for the first time ever, I'm watching people on quote unquote our side of the ledger, meaning the conservatives or Trump or whatever you want to call it, the sovereigntist or nationalist people. Let's call them the inheritors of Uncle Joe McCarthy. are finally fighting back and using media in a way that they always use against us. Like, I'm watching Trump not fight fair. Oh, you know how they, the Democrats don't fight fair, or the commies don't fight fair. They say a whole bunch of shit that's not true, like Ilhan Omar or any of these people. They say a whole bunch of shit that's not true. They propagate that falsehood through the media and everything else for weeks on end, and then issue some half-hearted retraction later on. But they've seeded into the zeitgeist the idea that Donald Trump is a rapist or whatever it is, or he's in the Epstein files, or to pick a thing that they lie about. I'm watching Trump and his people now lie about, now openly, speculate. Oh, really? Is Rand on the take from Venezuela? Because I saw that the other day. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't even care. I just know that somebody seeded that into the zeitgeist, and I'm like, yeah, prove that you're not. Like, play the Alinsky game on them. They deserve it. Because this is war, and there are no libertarians or atheists in foxholes. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So.
And it seems like so I sent that tweet out, got a lot of blowback, particularly from libertarian-leaning Bitcoiners who say I'm supporting the war state. But again, to me, it's like, hey, I'm from Philadelphia. I grew up not too far from the Frankfurt L, which is where you see the tranked-out zombies. And there was a pretty in-depth mini doc on that part of the city last year that really tied it to these the Tren de Agua gang specifically, and they're talking about how they get trank and fentanyl into the United States. And to me, it's like, hey, there's boats that are bringing these drugs in. You can find them in the sea and take them out. Like, you got to send a message. Like, there's equal opposite reactions. Yeah. And if anything, we're being merciful because of the amount of lives that have been lost in the United States.
You're correct. And that's very important. Understand that what this is really about, the minute we started going after Venezuela for real, you realize that now Trump opened up a different front. First, he went after, of course, City of London and Europe by going after all the NGOs, right? The globalists, that wing, whatever you want to call it. I used to call it Davos. Sometimes I call it the high table now. I just like to keep changing the words to fit the model of whatever's in your head, you the listener, because everybody has a different model of who the enemy is in their head, but it's all basically the same people, okay? You can add more or less, you can add more of a note of an air of liminess to it, or Jewishness to it, or old Roman empires. I don't care. It doesn't matter. These people are scum, and they think they run the world, and they traffic children, and they and run drugs and everything else, and they own and run the intelligence services. So Trump started an international war to end all the physical wars and the old geopolitical conflicts overseas, and that's him fighting all the roads lead to London aspect of things. Now, part of what I'm about to say also leads to London, but that road goes through Langley, and that's what Venezuela is about. So now he has set the military up against our intelligence services. You would say the rogue intelligence services, but the last time I said that in my presence of my wife, she's like, no. The rogue intelligence assets are the ones who are still patriotic and loyal to America. The default position within the intelligence services is that they're traitors. I'm like, yes, I stand corrected, love. So that's the front that Trump has opened up, and that's who's screaming. That's why the Seditious Six video. That's why the open calls for the governors in blue states to resist ICE and tell the local police not to work with ICE and not to work with the military and all the rest of this stuff. This is open color revolution stuff now. This is, step 6 or 6 of 7 or whatever it is that we're on that moment where they're trying to test the loyalty of, the military at the, company, battalion level, the National Guardsmen, and local law enforcement. They're trying to test that loyalty. Who do you work for? Who are you loyal to? So,
the Seditious Six aren't that inspiring, though. It was interesting that they came out.
No, because it wasn't about inspiring anybody. It was a signal. The way I read that video, and other people that I talked to that are much closer to this type of informational warfare, were better trained in it than I am. I'm not trained in informational warfare. I just happen to have a knack for it, I think. Which is why I'm able to, like, arrogate these people around me, curate them, and chat with them on a regular basis. Guys like Ian Burlingame and Blaine Holt and some other people. And they all said the same thing, which that was not that wasn't any kind of signal to try and, get the normies to rise up against the evil Trump. That was a signal to their international partners that they have their logistics in place and they're operationally ready to go. That's the way I read it, because they would never come out and say the thing if they weren't trying to signal that they're ready to go. And I think we're headed into 2026 with some kind of, they're going to try something sincere, because the way Trump is winning SCOTUS battles, the way he's winning legislative battles, the way he's winning, honestly, what I like to call the MEQ battles, and, Manila envelope quotient. I've got the goods on you. You work for me now. And all of the geopolitical battles as he unwinds all of these permanent, these British perma conflicts: Cambodia, Thailand, India, Pakistan, Iran, Israel, Gaza, trying to end Russia, Ukraine, and others, Rwanda, Congo, blah, 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 blah. All of these, Venezuela and the rest of the Western Hemisphere, all of these are old British and or French. Some of them are French. Leftovers from the colonial era that they left behind as they, quote unquote, left the physical, control of these countries behind and kept in place political and economic control. The British Empire never ended. It's still there, but as a financial web of old banking relationships, old, land titles and income streams and relationships, familiar relationships, and all the rest of it. And, and again, I'm using the term British Empire as kind of a catch-all for all of that, because so much of the financial flows go through London. Some of them go through Zurich, certainly. Some of them go through Frankfurt. They've been, they've outsourced some of this stuff in their global network. Some of it's in Hong Kong, Singapore, right? Dubai, blah, 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 blah. Some of it is in Venezuela. And we have to, be willing to upset. Some of that is in Ottawa or in Toronto. A lot of the drug money is laundered through Canadian banks. Their control over the capital flow into the gold industry for years flowed through all the Canadian banks. And if you looked at the way I used to study this stuff when I was first getting into all of this stuff. I was first falling down the rabbit hole well before I ever stepped out in front of the microphone or, do it and did this stuff professionally. Just when I was a chemist, and like everybody else in the world, just kind of like, what in the is going on in the world, and trying to figure out what's happening. One of the things that was really obvious, and I used to be a big fan of Jim Sinclair, and he would explain how gold exploration companies had to basically sell their soul to the bank in order to get any exploration money. The bank would immediately go short against the loan, and effectively, no matter what happened, the bank won, and the gold project never really ever made any money. It was predatory financing of the worst kind. And you stop to think about that in the context of why they would do that. It's, of course, so that they can control the price of gold at its source all the way up the supply chain, from E&P, exploration and early production, to futures markets, to the distribution of the physical, and then to the financialization of it over the course of time. And that has slowly and surely broken itself down over the years. First, the gold industry in particular started to self-finance. You started to get companies like Royal Gold and Wheaton Precious Metals and others and Franklin, Nevada, that started to do direct financing of the gold companies and taking royalty streams. So the birth of the gold and silver royalty companies were a shot against the major Canadian banks. But those Canadian banks that were controlling gold and turning it into the shadiest business on the planet, that news for you. They're the same banks that are laundering money for the drug cartels in Mexico, Venezuela, and Hong Kong and around the world. Same people.
Oh, it makes sense that Mark Carney is the Prime Minister of Canada, considering his connection with HSBC back in the day.
HSBC, former Bank of England, former Bank of Canada, right? Head of both the BOC and the BOE. Yeah, I mean Brookfield, and then now he's he's a major partner of Brookfield Capital, which is getting all of the contracts that the Canadian government is putting out in order to do their like rearm thing. Like Canada's turning itself now, literally under Carney, is trying to turn itself into the arms and commodities brokerage house for the rearming of Europe, right? And guess who's getting all those, getting all the sweetheart deals? Brookfield Capital. All right, Brookfield Asset Management. Sorry, that's the name of the company. BAM is the ticker symbol. So yeah, and guess who's on the board at Brookfield? One of the original investors in it. That would be no less than Mark Carney. So yeah,
it's so blatant in your face, but
it is.
Sup, freaks? This rip of TFTC was brought to you by our good friends at Bitkey. Bitkey makes Bitcoin easy to use and hard to lose. It is a hardware wallet that natively embeds into a 2 or 3 multi-sig. You have one key on the hardware wallet, one key on your mobile device, and Block stores a key in the cloud for you. This is an incredible hardware device for your friends and family, or maybe yourself, who have Bitcoin on exchanges and have for a long time, but haven't taken the step to self-custody because they're worried about the complications of setting up a private public key pair, securing that seed phrase, setting up a PIN, setting up a passphrase. Again, Bitkey makes it easy to use, hard to lose. It's the easiest 0 to 1 step, your first step to self-custody. If you have friends and family on the exchanges who haven't moved it off, tell them to pick up a Bitkey. Go to bitkey.world, use the key TFTC20 at checkout for 20% off your order. That's bitkey.world, code TFTC20.
Sup, freaks? This rip is brought to you by our good friends at Silent. Silent creates everyday Faraday gear that protects your hardware. We're in Bitcoin. We have a lot of hardware that we need to secure. Your wallet emits signals that can leave you vulnerable. You want to pick up Silent's gear, put your hardware in that. I have a tap signer right here. I got the Silent card holder, replaced my wallet. I was using Ridge Wallet because it's secured against RFID signal jacking. Silent, the card holder, does the same thing. It's much sleeker, fits in my pocket much easier. I also have the Faraday phone sleeve, which you can put a hardware wallet in. We're actually using it for our keys at the house too. There's been a lot of robberies. They have essential Faraday slings, Faraday backpacks. It's a Bitcoin company. They're running on a Bitcoin standard. They have a Bitcoin Treasury. They accept Bitcoin via Strike. So go to slnt.com/TFTC to get 15% off anything, or simply just use the code TFTC when shopping at slnt.com. Patented technology, special operations approved. It has free shipping as well. So go check it out. In terms of shots across the bow, I mean, I said this before we hit record. And something like I sent that tweet out, and not less than 12 hours later, the National Security Strategy document was released by the administration. And I don't think this is getting enough attention. Obviously, in your circle, in many parts of my circle, people are paying attention to it. But like mainstream, I just did a reread of it this morning and made like a short video. It's basically, you have to read this. This is like the most succinct, clear, and if you're an American looking for clarity in terms of what the current government has in store for you and the nation, by extension, this is one of the most incredible pieces I've ever written. The fact that it was true.
Right, yeah, I read it the other night. It came out, and everybody forwarded it to me, and I'm like, okay, I was busy with other things. Eventually, somewhere around 10 o'clock that night, I finally sat down. I never work that late at night, never. But it was a nice night. It wasn't bitter cold. The current cold front that we're getting here in Tennessee didn't come through yet, so it was like I had just gotten a brand new pair of wool socks, and like my feet were warm, and I pulled out my tablet, pulled out a cigar, and sat and I read the entire thing, relatively warm in the 40, and it was balmy 41 degrees outside at 10 o'clock at night, and I read the whole thing cover to cover, and I was like, yeah, I voted for that. And all I could read, all I could hear the entire time I was reading. Actually, I was describing this. I think it was the show yesterday with Tommy Kerrigan, Ian Burlingame, and Alex Craner. I said while I was reading it, I had two voices in my head. I had my voice in my head going, "This is one of the great," and the Ghost of Joe McCarthy. This is one of the greatest things I've ever read in my life as an American. And on the other side, I had the kind of pro-Russian, vaguely anti-American commentary out on the other side, some of whom were Americans, some of whom were my friends. I'm reading it from that perspective, going, how could the United States be this arrogant as to believe that they have the right to do this, to control the Western Hemisphere and do, and they would read it with nothing but that whole kind of Pepe Escobar style Empire of Chaos veneer, right? That's their glasses. So one movie, one screen, two movies, and you put on the nationalist glasses or the pro-American, we want our independence glasses, and you get one story. You put on the, kind of vaguely old, moldy old lefty neoliberal trained glasses of the anti-American set who thinks that, that history started in 1946, and you get that version of it. I could read the document from both of those perspectives at the same time, and I was like, yeah, I know how this is going to play in the zeitgeist at this point. And I'm like, I can tell you where I'm going to land, and I can tell you exactly what I'm going to say to anybody who, is thinking like, those guys. Like, I can't do it anymore. I can't even pretend to be happy about it. I can't even pretend that a lot of these people are being generous and that they just don't see it. Like, I don't believe it at this point, because, and this is going to come across as grousing, but it's not. Okay. I actually, I think at the beginning of the year, I'm sure you and I did a show where I talked about how we were starting to watch people start to like crash out and misinterpret what Trump is doing. And I said, watch, in about 6 months, everything's going to change, 6 to 8 months, and they're all going to be like off the rabbit. They're going to be off the deep end. And now I can name names. I'll give you a perfect example. Judge Napolitano is completely off the deep end. And then he has now poisoned everybody in his circle because they have an echo chamber. And I know some of these men, and I like them, and they're my friends. I've had dinner with them. If they called me up in the middle of the night and they need to be bailed out of jail, I'd go and do so. Not a thought in my mind, right? But to watch that well get poisoned because they missed a crucial part of the whole war that we're trying to fight, knowing full well that in the conversation 2-3 years ago, we had conversations where I was like, no, don't look at it that way. Look at it like this. It started with the Federal Reserve thing, and it's only snowballed for me from there. And I haven't lost the plot, I don't think. But look, let's continue to have this conversation. Let's not retreat to our echo chambers. And I can tell you that, and it's sad, because, I'd call them up and say, hey, let's do a show. And I get nothing in response.
I haven't seen these crash outs. What are they hung up on?
I'm talking, you go watch like anything that the judge puts out on a daily basis at this point. It's not even worth. I had to turn it off after a while. I can't watch Doug McGregor anymore. I can barely watch Tucker Carlson anymore. Like, I can't watch any of these people because because I can't tell if they're just watching they're putting on the wrong glasses and watching the 3D version of the movie. Though, they're putting on their Hoffman glasses and they're seeing, the aliens running the show, or if they're just looking at reality. I can't tell at this point, right? And I can't tell if it's that or if they really are, I don't want to believe they're anybody's asset. Like, I don't want to go there, but it's so hard not to. And so I started talking about this yesterday, and Alex Craner was, and rightly so, was kind of critically, trying to get me to walk me off the ledge about this. Like, but Tom, we have to continue to keep talking, because at some point they're going to come around, or we have to keep, I'm like, yes, I understand, Alex, but it's, at the same time, some of what I do, and I know why I do, I make a conscious choice when I do something like this, is to say, I know I'm reflecting a certain part of the zeitgeist, right? That I'm hearing from the people that that tune into shows when I'm on them, right? Or who are my patrons or whatever. And so I'm gauging the level of frustration that everybody's having, or where the things of the narratives have shifted, or where the breakpoints in the narratives are. And what I'm trying to do is highlight that so we can all just stop, being little bitches, and let's sit down and have a conversation. But, for example, Robert Barnes ghosted me 3 years ago and then didn't interact with me in one way at all for 3 years, even though my people were like, dude, have him on, like, have it out, have him on the show, or, come on, go on his show, or let's talk about it. Until Venezuela, he comes after me on Twitter and calls me a Q-tard.
A Q-tard?
Called me a Q-tard about the Federal Reserve trying to, take out City of London. I'm like, oh, that's it, dude. It's on like fucking Donkey Kong. Fuck you. Fuck you. You half-assed fucking process lawyer from Vegas. Fuck off. Like,
What was
I'm
his
not,
main contention? That
well, that's all he said. I'm like, but I know what that was. And he did it without tagging me. And somebody tagged, and then somebody tagged me and let me see it. And I'm like, oh, really, Rob? And now I'm just like going, now I don't care. Like, and I hate to like make this a big part of where we are, but of this conversation today, but it's important because what you're seeing is this is a classic divide and rule play that the British do. They start these fucking psyops. They create this this anxiety and this horse shit and get everybody fighting amongst themselves when we should be fighting the enemy, which is them. And, you know, I don't care if you think the enemy's the Jews or it's the Brits or it's the French or it's the Chinese or whomever, but we should be, you know, who's the progenitor of these psyops? I happen to think it's the British because, like, they've got 300 years of doing this shit and they're good at it. And they've been skunk working this shit in the bowels of GCHQ and MI6 and MI5 for the last 300 years. Like, it's nothing new. So, like, I go there. And I also go there because they're the ones always trying to deflect people from what they're doing, as opposed to, and then trying to turn it and scapegoat somebody else. When you see somebody constantly trying to scapegoat somebody else and minimize and then activate their bot farms to minimize their talking point, you know you're over the target. So now all of a sudden, now in the last year, I've become a Zionist shill. That is part of the $7,000 club because I have a Roman nose, apparently. Like, what are you kidding me? I'm Italian.
That's one of our top YouTube comments when you come on.
I know. It's hilarious. It's pathetic. Like, dude, I'm living in a fucking RV in the middle of rural Tennessee. Like, half the time I podcast outside at my house or where I'm just to show people that, like, I'm not rich. Like, if you think I do this because, you know, the Israelis don't pay very well then. And neither do the Russians, by the way. And neither does Trump. Like, you know what I mean? Like, any one day I can be any one of those three people. I'm like, how about I'm just a dude with an attitude problem and a big mouth that, you know, says shit you don't like.
I think that may be the case. But
I think that's kind of true, right?
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned like the two, you on the shoulder and then the other lens on the other shoulder. And you said you can just hear them reading the national security strategy document saying, the arrogance. But I thought it was written, again, intentionally in many different ways. Obviously, the length of it, the focus of it, but even the wording. Like, you said arrogance. Like, when I was reading it, there was like a bunch of humility, which was like, hey, we're not going to nation build anymore. Right. We want to focus on the Western Hemisphere. We don't want to be over the Middle East and meddling in affairs in that part of the world. And we do have a focus on Asia, but we're not really going to be like gung-ho about things there. We need to strengthen, number one, our domestic economy and then our region. And it's not nation building explicitly stated in the document. Like, we're not here to nation build. We just want to partner with like-minded allies in the region who can help secure their borders and then hopefully begin to engage in economic trade that uplifts all boats. And again, go read it. It's 33 pages, but really 29 pages of actual the strategy. And it all seems pretty common sense, straightforward to me, which is refreshing as an American. It's like, oh, you're actually telling us exactly what you want to do. And it makes a lot of sense. Right.
Well, again, the two, two movies, one screen thing is that one is reading it generously and one is reading it ungenerously. Like, I've done podcasts recently with, with people talking about, the stablecoin bill, the Genius Act and stablecoin plan and everything else. And so many of them everybody's in such fight or flight mode. And again, when I watch people, when I complain about what I'm seeing in other commentators in the space, I'm not doing so because I'm like angry or anything. I'm actually disappointed and I'm actually sad and frustrated because I know I can't have a rational conversation with them. I watched Alex, for example, I watched Alex Cristoforo debate Susan Kokinda on my friend Crypto Rich's show, and like it was exactly what I expected was going to happen, which is why Alex has not come on that show when I've been on for over 2 years. And there's a reason, and I could see that happening. And I'm like, oh God, don't go there. Let's not do this, right? But it's the generosity is the important part. They don't want to give up that. It's the American empire is evil framework. And, I look at it and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, for the first time in my entire life, yeah, we're not going to nation build around the world. Well, then what's this Venezuela? Why? What do you think he has a carrier group in Venezuela? He has a carrier group in Venezuela because you've got all this EW, you've got all this ability to watch and listen to the way the logistics are going to light up when they take out a boat, and then they still got to move product, they got to move it through a different channel. Like, you're just watching it, they're watching in real time what's happening. Somebody else brought up to me today, it was a patron. Like, I was checking my DMs on Patreon, and Patreon came up with a great observation, which I missed, and I'm going to pass it along. And it's not original from me; it's from one of my patrons, and it was a brilliant comment. He said, "Oh, by the way, Maduro, because he works for fucking Britain, was getting ready to invade Guyana because of the oil discovery, and so now he can't invade Guyana because he's got to worry about Trump on his northern border. He's got to worry about the carrier group on the northern border, and off the north coast. Like, how about something simple? Like, yeah, maybe they were planning on doing something else. Maybe the real regime change was actually going to happen in Guyana. Like, I'm not saying it's true or it's the only thing going on there. I'm saying there's you've got to add that to the mosaic of what Venezuela is. And if you think it's just about the oil, holy shit, dude, you're now in 2015 land. Like, we're not. This has nothing to do with that. This has to do with the election fraud, with the drugs and the guns, and the breaking up of the illicit money or the private money flows around the world, which keep the old empire, the shadow empire, which never ended, flush with cash. The first thing Trump did was go after the public money, all the NGO money. Has he gotten rid of all of it? No. And so anybody who's crashing out with allowing the perfect to be the enemy of the good arguments, which is what you're seeing from almost every libertarian, like, he does 9 things great. Or let me back it up. We'll make it this way. My dad used to have in his office this thing, and it was rules for working here. Every time you do something good, you get an attaboy. And so they're like all the lists of how you can get an attaboy. But, and it takes 1,000 attaboys to get, some kind, to get the next thing. But if you get 1 shit, you're back to square one. Right? So I used to read that. My dad had that above his desk, and when he was my first boss, and I used to read that, and I would just walk into his office and I'd laugh every freaking time I saw it. But that's the way a lot of people are arguing about Trump's foreign policy and Trump's domestic policy and his fiscal policy and everything else, and it's nonsense. He's shut down USAID, which was the big money pump. He shut down NED. He's got people, and he's got Doge as an operations department embedded in every cabinet office, so he doesn't need a separate bureaucracy called Doge anymore. And they're going through and they're destroying the grant money and those things. That this shit takes time, and to map out where all the money's been flowing through the banks and everything else. And sometimes the only way you can get that money to flow is to poke the snake and then watch them light the accounts up that have been dark forever. Personally, I think that's what's been going on with Bitcoin for the last 3 weeks. I think they're out of money. It makes sense to me that we're watching cold wallets. I think we're watching cold wallets that are old intelligence service wallets that are 10 years old. Or oligarch wallets that are 10 years old that have just been sitting there cold. And then they're dumping these Bitcoins on the market because, dude, I'm watching the markets today. I put out a big, long tweet this morning, because, and it was actually in response to a short conversation between Larry Leopard and Dave Collin, And it wasn't for once I wasn't being a douchebag. I was just like responding to them. And because they're both good guys. I love Dave. But then it's like, okay, I put out a response tweet to them about Japanese yen and the bond markets and the stuff. But no, this needs more color. So I then put up a big post, 3-part post about bond spreads, the yield curve, and all this stuff. And and I said, we have, so we're looking at this. I'm trying to look at this differently now. What I think is going on with part of what could be going on with Bitcoin is when I'm watching the way the bond market, the U.S. bond market is trading now, the character has changed. It used to be that when you saw a sell-off in the 10s and the 30s, you'd see buying in the 1s and 2s to try and sell the idea of a recession with an inverted yield curve. That's not happening. The U.S. yield curve is now really flat through the middle. And then rising. That means that they're selling 10s and 30s, but they're not. We're putting the money back in the 1s and 2s. They just need the fucking dollars. So it also makes sense that Bitcoin's being attacked and capped every time it tries to bounce, about 91, 92,000. You're watching it like for the last 3 days. It's been just like capped at like 90, or actually since Thursday, capped at like 91 grand. It's the same. You're watching that same, behavior over and over again. I'm like, oh yeah, they're out of money.
Yeah, it's a bunch of BART formations on the chart over the last week. It'll get up.
What's a BART formation?
Like Bart Simpson will go up. Oh, like hover.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, no, exactly. It'll go up, and it'll trade sideways, and it'll crash it. Then it'll go back. Then it'll go back up again. Yeah, especially if you watch like the 1 hour or the 2 hour chart. I think it looks that way. So yeah, I've been thinking in those terms for a while now. I also think that they're desperate to stop Trump from relisting Fannie and Freddie and get them back on the New York Stock Exchange and get the investor flow into that. Absolutely convinced now that the entire 2008 financial crisis was designed from the ground up to nationalize the mortgage market and the insurance markets. I'm convinced of it now. I mean, I can't go back over this and watch. I don't remember if you're a subscriber to the newsletter or not, but I wrote about this all last month in the newsletter, and I went, yeah, my conspiratorial mind is now going back over 2008, and I'm looking at the series of events of what actually happened, in what order, on what date, and I'm like, the plan was to take control of Fannie and Freddie, and they had to then detonate Lehman Brothers and AIG in order to cover it up. And AIG was the only one that got the bailout. Lehman Brothers got destroyed. Fannie and Freddie got put into conservatorship. London-based AIG got infinite bailouts as opposed to being broken up into various good parts and bad parts. And what did we wind up with? We wound up with Dodd-Frank, supplemental leverage ratio, all of this stuff that is denied, and then Obamacare, which Fannie and Freddie profits from 2011 and 2012 went to pay for Obamacare. Seems interesting that we would stage one of destroying the capital formation ability of your generation and my generation as we're coming into our prime earnings years, that they would bankrupt everybody then make it nearly impossible for small business owners to get a mortgage or a loan in America because of the capital requirements, the fact that we can't use our balance sheets and our profit and loss statements to get loans. We have to come in with our tax returns, which they know damn well small business owners don't file on April 15th. So for 6 months out of the year, it's almost impossible to get a fucking mortgage. Ask me how I know this, because I just spent 4.5 months fighting with Wells Fargo's underwriter because I hadn't filed my 2024 taxes yet, because I had filed an extension because we weren't ready yet. Like, it's a simple thing. Like, oh, so you're going to do basic tax avoidance strategies by having, like the same LLC strategy that every other fucking person in this country has. Well, guess what? You don't get to get a mortgage for 6 months because of stupid fucking Dodd-Frank rules and Elizabeth Warren screeching at you. Screeching at the bank auditors. Fuck off. That's literally the way the American mortgage industry has been working for the last 15 fucking years, 17 years. And on top of that, the banks are all capital starved. And they have to go along with this because the supplemental leverage ratio was forcing them to hold extra capital against their risk-free U.S. Treasury bond reserves. Excuse me. Like I know you listen to the podcast I did with Caitlin Long about this. She's the one who brought this up.
Yeah.
Like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. If it's the risk-free rate, it's the risk-free rate. Or does the Black-Scholes equation not work anymore?
Yeah. So,
and then they use the profits from Fannie and Freddie that they kept in the receivership on ice to fund Obamacare to destroy the healthcare industry.
And that's well
and now and that's why and then they gave us COVID, and then they flooded the channel with money and destroyed the friggin' pricing mechanism of everything: housing, cars, jobs, this, everything, beef, all of it. All designed just to destroy the middle class because, as always, folks, before communist revolution, the kulaks must be liquidated.
Sup, freaks? Healthcare open enrollment has started. It will roll through the end of January. Opt out of traditional health insurance, which doesn't care about you. It's impersonal. It's expensive. They deny an increasing amount of claims. Premiums are going up. You don't have to live this way. You can opt out. I opted out 4 years ago and joined CrowdHealth. I've been a CrowdHealth member, a very happy CrowdHealth member for 4 years. I've had 2 children, a couple of health events in that time period, and CrowdHealth has been there. You pay a monthly fee. You contribute to the crowd. We were paying $1,800 on Cobra as a family of 3. Now we're paying around $900 a month as a family of 5, and that's with CrowdHealth and direct primary care. You can opt out of health insurance. Go to joincrowdhealth.com/TFTC. You're going to get $99 a month for the first 3 months if you use the code TFTC. Joincrowdhealth.com/TFTC. Sup, freaks? 2025 left many wondering, was this an underwhelming year for Bitcoin or the quiet setup for an extended bull run? On December 17th at 1 p.m. Central, join Preston Pish, Connor Brown, and Unchained for Bitcoin in 2025, a year in review. A concise breakdown of the macro trends and policy developments that truly shaped the year. You'll hear what mattered most, where the market stands now, and what these inflection points reveal about Bitcoin's long-term direction. If you want clarity on where Bitcoin has been and where it's headed next, don't miss this event. So go register now at unchained.com/TFTC. That's unchained.com/TFTC.
And so how would you grade the administration despite all the blowback and I think what you would deem to be noise in terms of
I would give them an A. The only way they don't get an A+ is that they're still validating the media. Trump hasn't fully destroyed the media by just going to fireside chats. I mean, if there's one thing that Robert Barnes and I agree about how he's mismanaged things, is that he hasn't gone to fireside chats. There's like, stop playing the media's game. You don't need to beat up on them anymore. It's like beating up on a cripple. Everybody hates the media, so it's easy. We can take care of that. I am perfectly capable of memeing PMSNBC out of fucking business. Leave that to me. You don't need to waste your time with that. You're the president. Go speak to the normies and tell them, and speak to the kids who aren't quite sold on you yet. Because you put out a meme coin last year, and he doesn't realize how badly that fucked him with the kids. Move. It was a terrible move. I know why they did it. I tried to explain this to my 19-year-old daughter. I'm like, Sophie, I told my daughter, I'm like, dear, you do realize that he spent nearly $1 billion of his own money on legal defense to stay out of jail, right? For all bullshit. So the way they got that money back to him is that he issued a meme coin, and they threw the money back in. He didn't really, most of the people who got caught up in that did not, most of that money was not raised by, normies making $85,000, plumbers making $85,000 a year. That was mostly money that was funneled into it.
Yeah.
It was no different than giving him a $1 billion book deal.
Yeah,
right? Which is what they're doing with Biden, right?
Doing it
it's
on
the same thing.
Like the inauguration weekend, like the Friday of.
Okay.
I think they let some foxes in the hen house with that World Liberty Fi team. Never heard of them, and I think they are opportunistic scammers.
Mm-hmm.
For lack of a better term. But when I say like, what grade would you give them? I mean, based off of of your basically assuming that the public and many others don't understand what's going on. Like, is he actually making progress? Is the administration making progress towards bringing sovereignty back to the United States?
I think he is. I think he's doing great. I think he's doing well. I think he could be doing better. Right. But I'm okay with the perfect not being attainable. It's a war, and no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. To be honest with you, I think that he's done more than I ever expected him to do. I didn't expect him when he, I know you and I talked about this. But just to reiterate to the audience who may not have seen those conversations, I was shocked when it became obvious to me that he was going after London when he sent Elon Musk over to go after Keir Starmer and the rape gangs. The minute he did that, I about fell out of my chair, and I'm like, oh my God, does Trump actually understand what the problem is? Say it isn't so, man. And it was a big shock to me. And like in the course of maybe 2 or 3 days, I went from, he's my ship. He's a shitbag property developer from Queens, but he's my shitbag property developer from Queens too. Dude, like I was stoked. I was absolutely stoked. I spent the entire weekend like thinking about the potential implications of that, and then going over some of the stuff that I had missed. Because like everything else, you think you know something, so you go on autopilot for a while, and then something happens that makes you go, and you're like, "Fuck, I was wrong."
Yeah.
Okay, and sometimes you go, "Fuck, I was wrong." And I'm happy to be wrong. That's a good sign. And then he goes on. Then he goes, then the first 3 months of the administration were amazing. And you always had to realize that at some point, the Democrats / the bad guys, the media, whomever, were going to get their feet under them. Like Dexter White and I had long conversations about this, back in March, April. He's like, he cannot let them get their feet. He has to constantly be hitting them. And the Epstein files was the perfect mechanism by which to derail his momentum, right? And he fell for it, and he got sucked into it, and they got to win, or even maybe two, and
I feel like this week or the last few weeks with the Somali, the Minnesota Somali narrative that's being unearthed there with the abject fraud of the medical grants and other sort of federal programs. And I mean, Tim Waltz talking like Barbara Streisand affecting himself to having people drive by his house to call him a retard. Like,
yeah, it's great.
I think mimetically powerful, but also like, hey, a microcosm of this mass migration, flood the zone, change the demographics. Demographics is destiny. Like really highlighting like, hey, they're not sending their best.
No, they're not. I mean, Somalia, if they are sent, they may have sent their best. No offense to, Somalia has been a place of, it's been a pretty horrible place for a long time. And, people don't thrive. You don't get the best people under those circumstances. You don't get, it's tough. Like we know physiology is real. If you starve children, their brains don't develop very well. That kind of thing when they're malnourished and they're under, like all of it. And I'm sorry, I've used the phrase IQ 60 Somalis enough times that I'm not going to give a shit whether people think I'm a racist or not. It's 2025. That term doesn't have any power over me anymore. Like maybe these are the best that Somalia can actually give us. Maybe Ilhan Omar is like a Six Sigma Somali. She's clearly something because she actually can speak, for fuck's sake. But, sorry, folks. I don't care if I offend the Somalis in the audience, but get the fuck out of my country because you were brought here by Obama to destroy Minnesota. Like, you know how much Obama hates America? He took one of the whitest places on the planet and brought the dregs of Africa and dropped it into Minneapolis. I'm sorry. He should be hung for that alone. Forget Obamacare. Forget Russiagate. Forget every other goddamn thing that son of a bitch ever did. That alone? Sorry. So, yeah, Trump has so many different ways he can get the momentum back. And there's nothing they can do about it.
I mean, you alluded to it, but the Overton window shifting, how much does that play into his favor too? I mean, it's shifted dramatically
Yeah, it
in the
has.
last 12
Everything
months.
shifted. That I mean, like when that chick at Cinnabon the other day. Did you see that video?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, and everybody's like, yeah. I mean, everybody's like, yeah, we don't care anymore. Like, call us a racist. I saw a meme the other day. It was funny. It was like 2015. You're a racist. Whoa, what? What are you talking about? And then 2025. You're a racist. Like, it was like, okay.
Well, more importantly, too, I think people are realizing, like, particularly as it comes to the immigration policy and sort of investigations into the Somali community in Minnesota and now Columbus and other immigrant populations across the country. It's like really getting down to brass tacks. Like, all right, are they net positive economically or not? And more importantly, like really getting the message across, like, hey, I'd rather not do this, have to send the National Guard in and Border Patrol. But unfortunately, we're put in this situation and we can't just let it persist. We have to do something about it.
Yeah, we have to do something about it. And most people understand that. And that's what Trump's biggest problem is, the same problem that Putin has. I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now. Like, that is that his population wants him to move harder. Like the average Russian wants Ukraine dealt with more virulently than Putin is, and Putin's got the problem of hardliners wanting him to go harder. Trump's got the same problem. If we take anything away from, if the big takeaway that we should have of the rise and soon to be thankfully fall of Nick Fuentes, it's that there's an entire there is a subset of Americans that are like, you need to move faster. And part of that is because, again, let's go back to the fight or flight thing I talked about earlier. I talked about it in terms of the commentariat, worried about Trump not having a clue as to how foreign policy is supposed to work. I happen to disagree with that. I think it's pretty obvious that he does. He just prosecutes foreign policy and statecraft in a different way than they're comfortable with and they're used to. He has the same problem. He's got a lot of people that want him to go harder than he's going. And he's trying to hold that line. I think he's right to do that. But I can, I'm not going to, because again, look at what happened with Jim Comey and Letitia James. You have the Steve Murrays out there. Again, love Lieutenant Colonel Steve Murray. Great guy. Call him a friend. But I've sparred with him, like publicly on the air. Like, but dude, like, just arrest somebody for fuck's sake. Okay. So we arrest James Comey. We arrest Letitia James. And the judge just throws out the case because, the Senate hasn't confirmed any of his AGs. Like, and I got news for you. The legal team inside the Trump administration understood this. But what are you going to do? What can you say other than, hey, approve our friggin' our district, our DAs, so we can go in there and then legally do what they threw they threw Alina Habba out the other day. She's going to come back. But I mean, like, this is all this gross extend and pretend. And part of what's happening here, Marty, this is why I say this is Six video. All of this stuff is all part of the same thing. They want to turn Trump into Lincoln. They want to turn him into the guy who has to suspend the Constitution, suspend habeas corpus, and start doing stuff extra, quote unquote, extra constitutionally, in order to justify for them that they can go and they can wrap themselves in the morality of states' rights and go, we have to defend democracy. The same fucking bullshit that they're trying over in the European Union to get the false flag Putin into, I don't know, attacking Gdansk or some shit. I don't know. But it's the same thing. They need to have the moral high ground to be able to then write the headlines, to do the thing. And that's what they're playing. That's their game plan. That's the British model. That is the color revolution model. How you beat the color revolution model is exactly what Trump is doing, which is you send in ICE, you send in the National Guard, and you break all this shit up. And you fight intelligence assets and intelligence money with the military, because spies can't stand up to the military any more than snipers can stand up to, a company of men coming. And, snipers are only effective as long as their position hasn't been found. The minute you know where the sniper is now vulnerable, and the sniper better have a fallback plan, right? Well, it's the same thing with spies. The minute the spy, you know that that's the spy, you can't stand up to men with guns at that point. They come after you and they liquidate you. And I don't care if that liquidation is financial, legal, whatever, that's a metaphor for we're taking you off the board. Spies can't stand up to the military. And that's why Trump is using the military the way he is. That's why they're going after Hegseth. Because, and I agree with Ian Burlingame. He wrote a piece the other day saying the reason they're going after Hegseth is because he's a warrior who drinks too much. He doesn't give a shit. And he's going to blow you up because he knows you're the enemy. And he doesn't give a crap what you have to say about it. He doesn't care. But you're a racist. I don't care. Die. That's my job. Die.
Do you think they'll be successful in undermining Hegseth and getting him out?
They've tried how many times now? Like the libertarians are deluding themselves into having delusions of adequacy, that they have enough political power to do any of this. Bullshit. Like, the truth of the matter is that that X is a free platform because Thomas Massey and Rand Paul and the rest of them and Dave Smith and all of these guys, they all still have the quote unquote pull that they do on X. Because Elon can turn the freaking dial down on them to 4 tomorrow. And he's not doing it.
Well, how much of
it's in his best it's in our best interest to do that, but he's not doing it. He's going to let it play out.
Because running with this, you need to show relative restraint.
Yeah, you just have to keep staying on just this side of constitutionality, and then when they make a move, you act decisively and you kill it with fire. It's what they did in L.A. in June. The riots in L.A. in June over ICE going into that laundromat, which I thought was hilarious. They went into a laundromat that was laundering cartel money. Like, the optics couldn't be more obvious. And they didn't tell anybody what they were doing for 5 days. They went in there on a Friday, and it wasn't until Wednesday that Tom Homan started doing the media rounds to explain why they were there. They let the Democrats and Soros and the rest of them gin up a Renner-Beaner mob, set the fucking city on fire, so that Trump can then turn around and bring in nationalize the California Guard, bring in the Marines, do the thing, and wipe it out. But the entire time, they were watching all the money being lit up. How many accounts got lit up to pay for that rent-a-beaner mob? And I've watched them do it now 100 times, all over the country.
Who is coordinating this in the administration? Is it Stephen Miller?
I don't know, but I'll take a guess that it's Stephen Miller or somebody directly attached to him.
Yeah.
That's what I would suggest. But I bet it may be that Miller's more the Constitution. He's the one setting up all these EOs knowing full well that they're going to challenge them this way in court, and then they send the guy to the Supreme Court and make all these arguments, like the Humphreys exception or whatever the hell it is that they were arguing today. That's an important one. Just as important as Chevron. Like, they wrote a lot of these executive orders, and they use certain provisions of the U.S. code, the legal code, like the emergency, declaring a state of emergency to do tariffs, knowing full well that there would be a legal challenge that would go to the Supreme Court. I think they did all this stuff on purpose, because you needed to get all of these old bad abrogations of executive power off the books. Now, I talked earlier about reframing the 2008 financial crisis as a shot to get nationalized Fannie and Freddie.
Mm-hmm.
What if all the Democrats fighting about, oh my God, he's going to get all these Supreme Court picks, oh my God, that it was all about abortion? They kept saying it was all about Roe v. Wade. It's never about Roe v. Wade. It was always about Chevron. It was always about the Humphreys executor. It was always about this thing. It was about reestablishing proper executive power. And it's funny. I was talking to my wife about this. I had that insight today, or I had that thought today, and then I was chatting with my wife, and I said, "You know what really pisses me off?" She's like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, aside from everything." I'm like, "Yes, aside from everything, dear." What really pisses me off is I think back now on all those the libertarian commentators I used to read all the time that would complain about the executive getting too much power, and that they, and it was a constant stream from all of these guys about how the presidents are now too powerful, even though the reality is that Congress, well, I've kind of known this for a while, that Congress ceded some authority to the presidents that it shouldn't have ceded, like never passing a budget, declaring war, shit like that. But on the other side, the Supreme Court was handing executive power back to the legislature, or worse, taking it and handing it to the managerial class, to the cabinet class, and saying you can't do anything with, you can't fire them, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I'm like, and they never addressed that part of it. They only ever addressed executive overreach. And I'm like, huh. Wow. Maybe it really was just nothing more than a big British psyop the entire time. And that pisses me off, because I don't want to believe that of a lot of these men who, are I've always thought were good people. And maybe they are good people. And maybe they're just not having, again, you can be misled and then, and have tunnel vision because of your imprinting or because of this or because of that, like all of this stuff. And I'm like, there's something wrong here. Like all of this, all of this stuff is not, it's off.
Mm-hmm.
There's something very off about all of this. And I think everybody really needs to take a step back and really reassess what it is they think they believe. Now, this is myself as well. Reframe what you think you know about history, about America, about the Constitution, about our republic, about all of this stuff. And I think if you do that honestly, you're going to really begin to find where what's the best way to put this? You're really going to find where the
external influence,
lack of depth in your analysis, actually, your position actually is. A lot of Bitcoiners are really going to have to rethink. And it's not just Bitcoiners, but gold bugs and everything. Like I'm at the point now where I'm like, I mean, I don't even like, I'm like, really? Peter Schiff, you're Pacific Capital. He's been telling me the entire time he doesn't work for the United States.
Yeah. So
it's not about gold. It's about that. It's about the fact that his dad went to jail and died in jail over the 16th Amendment, which, by the way, is was laudable in its way, and I get it. But hey, if I have to play amateur psychologist for Peter Schiff, that's as generous as I'm going to be. But he should have processed that shit 20 years ago, and that's been watching the way the world plays out. I think his antipathy to Bitcoin, I could easily make the argument that his antipathy to Bitcoin, runs through his whatever relationships he has with London. Because London is absolutely dead set against Bitcoin. So is Brussels. So is, that entire version of that entire area of the world. They don't want that.
Well, it's a Bitcoiner. I'm glad to hear that the enemy doesn't like it.
The enemy hates fucking Bitcoin. Why do you think I'm still a Bitcoin guy? Honestly, if I saw coming out of the EU and or out of London that they started to really embrace Bitcoin, I would have to take a serious step back and wonder about the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
I've seen you've been embracing XRP though. What's up with that?
What's that?
You've been
embracing? No, I wouldn't say I'm embracing anything. All I'm doing is reading what's happening.
Okay.
What I think is happening is that the Treasury Department is now in the process of creating a new mechanism to replace SWIFT, to replace a global payment system, and settlement system for U.S. treasuries and U.S. dollars that is not controlled by SWIFT, the BIS, the IMF, the World Bank, all of that. And I think Ripple's just been chosen. That's what I think. And it's nothing more complicated than that. I know there are a lot of people out there who want to call me a Ripple shill and a shitcoiner and a this and that. I'm like, dudes, I've literally stated this exact thing this way for a year. And I'll be honest with you. My people internally were begging me for 2 years, the Ripple guys in my community. 2 years. Tom, what the fuck, dude? You have to take a look at this. What's going on? I have serious freaking Ripple guys in my community. And it finally, I finally started like watching the lawsuit, the SEC lawsuit, and of watching the machinations of the SEC lawsuit. And that's when I realized that, this is clearly an operation. This was another one of those extend and pretend operations. And it was designed to do a bunch of things. I think Jay Clayton left that poison pill on his way out the door in order to get us to the point where we could have real crypto legislation in the United States, because we had to have a court case which then defined what a digital security was and what a digital asset, where where securities begin and end in the digital space. And I think that that's what that was for, with the long-term plan of trying to, if they ever got back into power, to wrest the monopoly control of the issuance of dollars away from the Federal Reserve and put it back in the hands of the Treasury. And I think I've been saying this for a long time. I have. This is nothing new. I've been saying this, go back almost 4 years now, 3.5 years. I'm saying that I think that this is where we're headed. And I think Bessent has made it abundantly clear that's what he wants. I think Jay Powell will set the table for him. And I think if Kevin Hassett is the Fed chair, it's going to happen.
Odds are looking pretty good for that. I actually had Susan Kokinda on for the first time last week.
Yeah,
didn't know you guys were friends, and but she brought up the presser that Bessent did either last week or the week before, where he mentioned like 50% of my job is national security, which was a surprise to him.
I also noted, Marty, so 2 days after Scott Bessent comes out and says buying Bitcoin is good for America, they start bombing the fucking crap out of it.
What's that say to you? Oh, the British start bombing.
I think we're dealing with that whole globalist crowd trying to attack, and I think it's coming directly. It probably came from Larry Fink and others, but yeah. And again, Larry Fink is also in trouble because BlackRock and Blackstone, and and all of those guys, those private equity guys, are all beginning to get over a barrel on all of their residential real estate in places like New York. Their CLOs are blowing up. Their private equity, their private loan portfolios are blowing up. And they may just need a whole fucking load of dollars, dude.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And Scott Bessent is sitting back there going, "Hi, my name is Thurman Munson, and I'm catching fastballs." Goose Gossage is on the mound, and I'm catching fastballs.
Well, there's
another
a lot of
100 Bitcoins. Stick them in the sovereign wealth fund. Another 100 Bitcoins. Stick them in, you know what I mean? So,
yeah. Well, there's a lot of focus on the midterms last year. Obviously, polling doesn't look great because people want things to be faster, harder. In your mind, how much of this needle threading is dependent on midterms next year? If
midterms are everything. It's clear and obvious that the whole point of the extend and pretend, the fighting over the one big beautiful bill, the government shutdown, everything. Marjorie Taylor Greene crashing out, I firmly believe she's in the pay of somebody else. Fucking cunt. Marjorie Taylor, drama queen. Sorry. They are clearly targeting a midterm scenario. I mean, it's very obvious. If we get honest to God, voter roll cleanup and election integrity, which I think Trump is now going to start really pivoting to, cleaning up Obamacare. And he's going to probably, he's got a little bit of time right now. He does. because he's got until tax returns start coming in. And people start getting their refunds. And all the lower middle class people getting their refunds because of no tax on tips and little things like that. A lot of people in the mid to lower income tax brackets are going to start getting their refund checks, and they're going to be bigger than they thought. That's going to help him. You got the State of the Union address coming up in the, probably late January. And he's already seeded the zeitgeist with, we need to reform Obamacare. We need to deal with this. We need to do all these things. And we need to get Fannie and Freddie out the door and start overhauling the mortgage markets. Because once Fannie and Freddie are out of conservatorship and they're backlisted on the public markets, then they can begin the process of changing the terms in which we get a lot of mortgages. We get our mortgages. And we can start putting it back to at the center of American financial power, which it was. And then all of these other things start maturing, like all the investments, all the factories that are being built, all the stuff that's happening. Yeah. Like it's starting. And he's got time to then really to make the argument for a lot of these things. And he doesn't have to go faster per se. He just needs to start making things better. A lot of these people are not going to go to jail during this term. Like, if anybody thinks that Hillary Clinton's going to jail, that's not, who cares? Why do we care about Jim Comey? Why do we care about Letitia James? That's all bait being dangled out there to find out just how far they're willing to go to stop, to derail the train. The target is Obama. And if you go after Obama, you can't fucking miss.
It seems like
Trump doesn't want anybody else other than Obama. That's all he wants. You can smell it.
It seems like that's what Tulsi's been focused on, right?
Yes.
For the last few months.
And notice how Trump is out there taking everybody's slings and arrows while she's in the background, quietly doing her thing.
How do you think that's going to play out? What's the timeline going to look like?
I don't know. I don't have a feel for that, but you can think in terms of, I would say is that you focus on the domestic stuff now. You reassure people that you don't look like a whole bunch of let them eat cake, quote unquote supply siders, like they branded Reagan with it. He didn't care and all that crap. But it's, like both sides of the argument work. I mean, demand, pull, and supply. So there are many different ways to skin the cat. Let's fix the fraud. Let's get rid of, let's just get things going, right? Let's keep things moving forward. Obama, you're not going to probably be able to do anything until there's a new Congress at all, realistically. You can barely get Ukraine settled because Trump, part of the reason why Trump is having to play the game the way he's playing it over Ukraine, he can't just walk away. It's because if he does so, he will lose so much support in Congress, it's not funny, and they won't pass anything if not fucking impeach him. Not because we would want this. We want this. They don't. They're dirty. They're on the gravy train. They're on the grift. Every goddamn one, the ones who are just cynically on the grift, and there's other ones that are hip deep in the fucking corruption and all of it. And you don't think he can't get, they can't muster 60 votes in the Senate if he doesn't set the political table on Ukraine? This is why these people will just pull out. Okay, yeah, then what? Sorry, this is why Ron Paul would have been a terrible president. I love Ron, but he would have been an awful fucking president because he would not have navigated the politics of the situation, and they would have never had the opportunity. I mean, maybe in 2012 things weren't as bad as they are today. That's arguable. That's arguable because that's when Ron would have been president. 2012, right? Then you can make that argument, and we can fight about it. Like men, but Trump has real reality in front of him, which is that he has a Congress that would impeach him tomorrow for being Donald Trump. If they could get away with it politically. It's still here. Yeah, it pisses us off that it's a year, we're nearly a year into this and we're still dealing with that. Yeah, war sucks. Get a fucking hat and pick up a rifle. Like, that's the way it is. Yeah, they're still shelling us, but we're still alive. We're still in the game. We're more in the game now than we've been in a long, long time. Take the win. Don't think glass half empty. Don't think like you're in your fight or flight mode. Get out of fight or flight mode, or get out of flight mode and get into fight mode and go, no, we got this done. We got that done. What can we do with that? Those are new assets that we have on the table. How can we use those assets to go from here to there and then from there to there? Like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and like, you have to think like Patton. So, little known fact, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So, Star Wars Empire, favorite movie of all time. Number 2 is Patton. Number 3 is the Maltese Falcon. Okay. After that, the list gets a little hinky. But Patton, asked very famously at one point during the whole thing, George, I would have thought you just got done with a big battle. I would have thought you would want to regroup and give your, and consolidate your gains. He's like, not me, Freddie. I don't like to pay for the same real estate twice. Patton believed in attacking all the time. Once you have the enemy on the run, especially, and the more I learned about German logistics and the difference in Patton understood that we had immense logistical advantage over the Germans, just numerically. And I mean, our logistics lift in World War II was off the charts, right? There's a variety of reasons for that, because we rightly saw this would be an industrial war. We had industrial capacity. We used it, and we just outperformed. We just produced the Germans. German shit was better. We had more of it, a lot more of it. And our troops, on average, over the course of on any given day, over the lifespan of the war, our troops were better armed, better fed, better equipped with inferior equipment, because we had more of it. All we had to do was knock out one German tank, and it was out off the field for weeks. You knock out a Sherman, and guys could fix it by the side of the fucking road with the parts off the other Sherman that just got hit, right? Hell, you could, like, there were parts sharing between the freaking Jeeps, and it was just insane the way we fought that war. The point being is that Patton understood that he had the logistical lift, meaning he never wanted to go backwards, because that was his asset. He understood that was the asset you use to win this war, not anything else, because that's the best asset that he had. You train the men to believe in the asset of all of that, and boom, you can do miracles, and then you can get shit like the Battle of the Bulge, right? That's the way we fighting this war today again. And this is an informational war. This is a financial war. This is a kinetic war. This is a multi-theater, multi-operational war. It's like everything else. So here we are in the information space. Here, Trump in the political space, and in the military space and the financial space. He's fighting on all of those fronts at the same time. He's doing a reasonably good job of it. And you'll notice that he's not going backwards. He refuses to go backwards. What's the one thing about Donald Trump we all know?
He's a hard worker.
Tomorrow. Well, it's not that. He is a hard worker. But with certainty do we know that he's not going to do tomorrow? Apologize.
No.
He does not apologize. He just moves forward. I made a mistake. Fuck that. We move forward.
He's literally cursing more too. He's getting more brash.
Oh, he's awesome. It's like it's hilarious. When he retweeted the other day that video of him and fat JD Vance setting up the metal band outside of Tim Walz's house, I'm like, this is the best fucking timeline ever. Like, and there was another one this morning of him and Elon Musk in X-Wings attacking the EU Death Star. And it was hilarious. Oh, it was beautiful. Like that's where we have to be. That's what we have to do. And yeah, does it sound like I'm a Trump cocknobber or whatever? Fine. Yeah, whatever. I don't give a shit, dude. He's the general we have. He may not be the general we want, but he may be the only general who could actually get us to this point in the fucking first place. So stop whining and go figure out how you can make this better. Because I got news for you, dude. Sitting on the sidelines and bitching about Israel isn't winning the fucking war.
Well,
So it doesn't matter whether Israel's evil, this, that, or anything else. They're soon to be an asset. You have to think like, I mean, seriously, if I'm Donald Trump right now, and I'm using Israel here on purpose because it's like the one liability we're supposed to have. Okay, I'm doing this on purpose, and I love feeding the trolls because it just makes me happy. Because again, Patton's my second favorite movie of all time. Israel, at this moment in time, if you rip them away from City of London, becomes an asset. Yeah, they may suck and they may be evil, whatever. I don't care. I can use them to my end to get what I want, which is to make America better. I'm thinking like Donald Trump. And that's the way he works. And that may rankle your morality, and that may get on you may not be able to square that with, with whatever God you worship or whatever, fine. But geopolitics doesn't care about your morality. Survival doesn't care about your morality. That's where we are. And that's the way we have to analyze the world. It's the way I always analyze the world, Marty.
What's the alternative, too? It's just like handing it back, accelerating towards democratic socialism.
Yeah, why don't we just hand it all back to the globalists who are going to like put us in cages and tell us we can't eat meat and tell us that cockroach milk is 4 times more nutritious than cow's milk and all this shit that, like every day they go as deep, as depraved as I thought they ever could be. I saw that one the other day and I was like, yeah, that's your alternative. So, if you want to think that I'm in the $7,000 club, folks, taking my 30 pieces of silver from the fucking Israelis, you go right ahead. I don't care. I'm on the side of the guys not going backwards.
I love it. What is, to end out the year?
Sure.
Any predictions for 2026 or
Civil
things
War.
to look out for? Really?
Yeah. An attempt. Like,
what's a civil war look like in 2025? Is it kinetic?
Well, the Civil War right now is the intelligence services have declared civil war. They've made this abundantly clear, and I'm expecting if Trump continues to run the table on. Well, let me put it this way. We just had this meeting today between queer Stalin, Emmanuel Macron, and Frederick. Frederick Mayrd, and Zelensky. They've made it abundantly clear that they want war with the Russians no matter what, and they're willing to go along without the Americans. Well, good luck to you, and we'll sell you guns. And, again, the anti-war crowd will, tie themselves in the knots that, we shouldn't be doing that. Well, yeah, we can sell them guns. Fine. I happen to think, for the most part, that they're not going to they can't afford to buy our guns because we may, say, hey, but by the way, you got to pay us in gold because we're not taking fucking euros from you. And if you want to sell those euros to buy dollars to buy our weapons, great. That's fine. You can watch your credit ratings go into the gutter. So we've got you coming and going, folks, because if you do that, we're going to take those dollars and we're going to buy gold with it. We're going to send it to $6,000 an ounce and we're going to fuck you that way. Okay. So Bessent is a badass, by the way. Okay. So if we keep winning like that in the battles that matter, and Epstein is not a battle that matters. Marjorie Taylor Greene's battered wife thing, not a battle that matters. In all the battles that matter, if we're winning, if he keeps winning, they're going to force them into their nuclear option, which is they're going to attack our bond markets, tell all the governors to secede from the union over some created false flag slight, whatever it is. I know that's what they're ginning up with these war crimes over Venezuelan drug boats, which is I never thought it would be this lame.
It's very lame.
It's so lame. It's so lame. I'm like, God almighty, that's all you got?
You're gonna
Really?
impeach him for blowing up the fentanyl dealers? That's
okay, that's fine. Yeah, no. Like, understand, Marty, I have no problem with us deficit spending right now to pay for the $50,000 signing bonuses for people to join ICE, to get rid of all of these people in this country. That's where my soul is. That's why, and why do I think that? And why have I decided to get off the morality train? Whatever. I'm no longer in the I don't kick puppies club. I don't wear that t-shirt anymore. It's for my daughter, it's for your children, and it's for everybody's children listening. Whether you want me to be working on behalf of your children or not, especially if you hate every fucking word that came out of my mouth so far tonight, great. Still going to fight for your kids. That's what Trump is doing. I know that's what he's doing. And that's what guys like Hegseth are doing. I know that's what Tulsi Gabbard's doing. She couldn't have children. And now she has put her entire life into national service.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that too, because going back to like the Overton window shifting, and whether it's the Somalian immigrants or just the immigration issue, broadly speaking, I think particularly in the last 3 to 6 months for me personally, like, and especially when like the Minnesota fraud came out, it's just like, listen, I don't want my kids to live in a country where that's happening. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't care if you call me racist, a xenophobe, a warmonger, whatever it is. Like, I'm sorry, my boys will not.
I've been called everything under the sun. I've been called, Mr. Putin doesn't pay very well. Mr. Netanyahu really doesn't pay very well. Mr. Trump doesn't pay very well either. None of them pay well. Like, you know who pays well? My patrons pay well. Yeah. That's who pays well. Yeah. And whatever God I may or may not believe in, I thank him for those people every fucking day, because they give me the opportunity to give it to you with both barrels and a little dirty to make it stick. Again, I'm going to keep quoting Patton here until you guys fucking get it. Because I'm not shoveling shit in Louisiana, folks. All right. That's what this is about. And we either, this is what I'm good at, right? I'm not much good for anything else. I'm really not. So this is what I'm good at. What are you good at? What are you going to do to make the world a better place? And whining about war crimes against fucking cocaine traffickers on Twitter is not making the world a better place. It's just not. So go make your community better. Get the fuck off of Twitter. Shut the fuck up. You're not that powerful. And oh, by the way, your ideology probably came from the same place that communism came from. The bowels of MI6. Hate to break it to you, folks. I was duped too for a long time. I still think buy gold, and I still think you should buy Bitcoin. So
we'll end it on that sage advice. It's always a pleasure, sir.
You too, Marty. Great to say. It was great to talk to you. If I do not talk to you between now and the end of the year, and to everybody in the audience, please have a Merry fucking Christmas. And we're taking that back too.
Merry Christmas, freaks. Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Thank you for listening to this episode of TFTC. If you've made it this far, I imagine you got some value out of the episode. If so, please share it far and wide with your friends and family. We're looking to get the word out there. Also, wherever you're listening, whether that's YouTube, Apple, Spotify, make sure you like and subscribe to the show. And if you can leave a rating on the podcasting platforms, that goes a long way. Last but not least, if you want to get these episodes a day early and ad-free, make sure you download the Fountain podcasting app. You can go to fountain.fm to find that. $5 a month gets you every episode a day early, ad-free. Helps the show, gives you incredible value. So please consider subscribing via Fountain as well. Thank you for your time. And until next time. Okay.